questions, the therapist uses presuppositional language. That is, the clinician asks the questions in a way that presupposes the miracle will happen, or has already happened. Asking questions this way increases the likelihood of the client answering the question in a positive way.
They would already be up in the kitchen together, eating breakfast, drinking coffee, maybe talking about their plans for the day.
So when your parents are doing these things the morning after the miracle, what difference does that make for you?
I guess I would get up and join them in the kitchen.
So what else will you notice that will tell you that a miracle has happened during the night while you were sleeping and that you are standing up to hopelessness?
Mom would make me pancakes because she knows how much I love pancakes. And Dad would show me a comic strip from the newspaper, and maybe we would have a big laugh. You know, we used to do these things all the time.
And how about you, Bill? What will be the first thing you notice the morning after the miracle that would tell you that hopelessness is no longer living in your family?
Well, I do like the idea that Joe would get up on his own and be in the shower getting ready to go to school, and I like the idea that this would make Jane very happy.
And what else would you notice the morning after the miracle?
Well, Jane is always up before me, so I guess I would wake and see her getting ready to go to work, and she would be smiling, and she wouldn't look tired. She looked like she'd have a good night's sleep. And then she would come over and say good morning and give me a kiss on the cheek.
So when Jane is looking relaxed and rested and being affectionate, what difference does that make for you?
Well, it would make me feel good, and I would feel like it's going to be a good day for all of us.
And when they see you, what will they know? How will they know that you're feeling? What will they see you doing that will let them know that you're feeling good and that today is going to be a good day?
Well, maybe they'd see me looking at the want ads in the newspaper for work, because I haven't done that for a while. I given that up weeks ago.
Wow. And that's what it sounds like, a very good day. So if your day after the miracle starts off that way, where you're standing up to hopelessness and not letting it take control of you, how do you think the rest of your day will go?
Well, with Joe getting up on his own and getting ready for school, and Bill getting up and having coffee and reading the paper, I feel like a huge weight off my shoulders.
So then when Joe and Bill are doing those things in the morning after the miracle, how do you think the rest of your day will go?
Well, because I won't have to worry about them, I'm sure I'll have more energy and be able to focus on doing my job. You know, maybe even have a few laughs with the customers and my coworkers.
So after a day like that, where you're standing up to hopelessness and your morning has started after the miracle, how do you think your evening will go?
Well, when I come home from work, I won't be so exhausted. And I'll probably have a few stories to tell. I meet a lot of interesting, or at least amusing, people. And we'll have dinner together as a family, which is something we haven't done much in the past several months.
And how about you, Bill? With your morning starting off like this, how do you think the rest of your day will go?
Well, I'd like to say that I would be doing full-time construction work, but as it seems now, for that to happen, a miracle would have really had to happen.
I can understand that. Short of that happening, how will the rest of your day go?
Well, I would be looking for a job. If I couldn't find full-time construction work, I'd probably take any odd jobs or part-time jobs that I could find.
Yes, that makes sense. At the same time, I'm wondering, what would be the first or second thing you would do following having breakfast with Jane and Bill and Joe when Jane has gone off to work and Joe has gone to school?
Well, I probably would be happy that they left feeling okay and we didn't have any struggles or fights that morning.
So after they've gone, what what would you do for the first few hours?
Well, I would be relieved that they left feeling okay and I wouldn't have to be worrying about them.
So, you're no longer worrying about them and you're feeling relieved. What would you do with yourself for that day?
Not really sure. Maybe I would start to straighten up around the house so it wouldn't be so messy when Jane gets home from work. Because, I'd be feeling good and I'd want to do something nice for her. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mean cleaning the house. I just mean maybe picking up a little. Because, it's not fair. Jane works all day and then she has to come home and she has to deal with all the housework herself. I think I would like to help out with that.
Yes. Now that would be a miracle.
So after you've done some straightening up around the house, what would you do next?
Well, looking for a job would still be on my mind. I've looked for construction work every place I can think of. Maybe I need to start looking for another type of work. My buddy Juan suggested that maybe I go to the local branch of the library and ask information about job hunting on the computer. He said he was going to do that, but he hasn't done it yet. And I've looked everywhere else. Maybe there's places I don't know. And a library, they probably should be able to tell me about how to do that, how I can do it on the computer.
Yes, some do provide information with at least finding more information on finding jobs. Joe, what do you think your day would be like following the miracle?
I guess I would be going to school and hanging out with my friends.
Who would be the first person to notice that you're at school?
One way to strengthen exceptions or thicken the alternative storyline is to ask about those who would notice the difference, now or in the future, or others who would recognize the alternative storyline from remembrances about them in the past, current experiences with them, or conclusive predictions for the future based on past ways of knowing them.
It would probably be Betty. She's in my first period English class, and she's my best friend, and she's been asking me why I've been missing school.
Who else would notice that you're in English class?
My teacher, Mrs. Jenkins.
And how would she react?
Well, she would be shocked that I'm there and on time.
Okay. Going back to that 0 to 10 scale, where 0 is where you're filled with hopelessness, and 10 where you're filled with hope. Following the day of the morning of the miracle, where would you rank yourself on that same scale?
The therapist is going back to the scaling question to ask clients to rank their desired goals on the same problem-goal continuum on which they ranked the presenting problem.
I would have to say a 6.
Yeah, maybe a 6.
How about you, Joe? Where would you rank the family?
I would say 7.
And where would you need to be on that same 0 to 10 scale where you'd no longer need to come and see someone like me?
A 9.
Yes, I would say a 9.
Probably an 8.
So when you're at an 8 or 9 on that 0 to 10 scale, how will you know it? What will it look like? What else will be different in addition to what happened the morning after the miracle so that you would know that you've reached an 8 or a 9?
Well, I'd have to know that it wasn't just a one-day miracle, but that the changes were permanent. That Joe was no longer feeling depressed, but was feeling hopeful.
What will you see Joe doing that will tell you that he's no longer feeling depressed and now feeling full of hope?
I know Joe would be getting up to go to school every day, just not the day after the miracle.
Yeah. Joe will be back and being interested in his schoolwork again, and his grades will go back to A's and B's, maybe even more A's and fewer B's than before.
And what else will tell you that Joe is no longer feeling depressed and is full of hope?
He'll no longer be isolating himself in his room.
So when he's not isolating himself in his room, what is he doing instead?
he and I will go back to talking to each other like we did before and watching our favorite TV shows together.
Joe, how will you know when you're at an 8 on that 0 to 10 scale after the miracle?
I guess I would be getting myself up in the morning again and hanging out with my friends. Maybe I'd write poetry again.
Is there anything else that would have to happen for you to know that you're at an 8?
Well, I wouldn't see Dad moping around the house all the time.
If he's not moping around the house, what's he doing instead?
Maybe he's doing some yard work or working on repairs for the house. Maybe he won't even be at home.
Well, I appreciate your patience with me as I've been asking you a lot of questions. This is very helpful for me in order to get to know you better, and also for me to get to know better what you want to get out of our work together. I usually take a break for a few minutes to gather my thoughts and jot down some ideas that I'll share with you before you leave. But first, I'd like to talk to Joe. There's one thing I need to check out by himself.
Suicide assessment. At this point, the clinician asks the parents to leave for a few minutes to talk with Joe. The purpose of doing this is to do a suicide assessment. Adolescents who are having suicidal thoughts are more likely to share them with the clinician without the parents in the room. Of course, if the adolescent is having suicidal thoughts, then the clinician must tell the adolescent that she or he must inform the parents. In this case, when the clinician asked Joe about as to whether or not he was having any suicidal thoughts, he replied that he did not. The clinician then brought the parents back into the room and then took a 5-minute break to compose an end-of-session message. The end-of-session message consists of compliments, a task frame, and a between-session task. The therapist uses the break to consult with the team about the session content, family participation, etc. Or if there is not a team behind the one-way mirror, then the therapist reflects on the session herself or himself. The therapist prepares to return to the family with a specific message. This message consists of compliments, a task frame, or what others term a bridging statement that links the session content and the compliments to the between-session task.
First, I want to say that I appreciate your patience with all my questions and your openness in answering them. I'm impressed with your thoughtfulness in responding to my questions. I'm also impressed with how respectful you are with one another. Bill and Jane, it's very clear that you love your son, Joe. And Joe, it's clear that you love your parents as well. I'm also struck with how in tune you are with each other. That is to say, how good you are at noticing how each other is feeling. I'm also impressed with what a good job you did in answering the miracle question. That tells me that you all have good imaginations. Because you are so good at noticing how each other is feeling, and also because you were very good at answering the miracle question, there is something I'm going to ask you to do between now and the next time we meet. Between now and the next time we meet, I want you to just notice when parts of that miracle picture that you did such a good job at describing is happening for you in your life. I want you to notice that, and especially notice when hopelessness is trying to take control and what you do to tell it not to take control of you. Notice those times when it is happening, and you can either make a mental note or write it down, and we'll share it with each other the next time we meet. Is that something you're all willing to do?
The task here is an observation task. In most other approaches to intervention, clients are asked to notice when the problem is occurring, especially at its worst, and notice the when, where, who, and how of the context. In strength-based approaches, the opposite is done, in that the clients are asked to notice what's going on in their context when the problem is not present, or at least noticeably improved, and also notice what they may be doing to get that to happen.